Hello and welcome to the May 2023 Longevity Review, presented to you by the Canadian Longevity Association, a federally incorporated nonprofit whose mission is to help accelerate the introduction of effective longevity treatments and to ensure their free availability to all Canadians under the healthcare system. My name is Chris Linnell, and I am the founder and president of the association. We are a volunteer-run organization and are always looking for more help. So if you would like to lend us a hand, then please get in touch via the links below this video. This month, we will take a look at a couple of safety studies for rapamycin in both humans and dogs, how collagen peptides can help reduce advanced glycation end products, a review of the optimal duration and type of exercise for longevity, how creatine can almost double the strength gains for older people who are partaking in resistance training, and also how GlyNAC, a combination of glycine and NAC, could have cognitive benefits. Finally, I will also give you a brief summary of some significant developments at the CLA in the month of May. Okay, let's get stuck in then. Now, the first one, again, here's the CLA news. I'll share with you at the end. But as you may know, you probably might know, I am very high on the drug rapamycin, also known as sirolimus, which is an mTOR inhibitor and was the very first drug shown to increase the lifespan of a normal mouse back in 2009. Anyway, I believe it is the drug closest to translation to humans, and I have actually taken it myself, if you've watched previous videos of mine. And there are human studies taking place for longevity with rapamycin. However, it'll be a few years before we get the results of those. So any hints or any indications that rapamycin is beneficial, I'm sort of seizing. And the past month, we had two such studies. The first of which I should need to emphasize is not a placebo-controlled trial. In fact, not even a trial at all, more of a survey of people who are taking rapamycin off-label, because it's quite gaining in popularity within the biohacking community. However, the reputable scientists were behind these surveys, but some interesting results came out of them. So let's take a look. So the first one, as I say, it's in humans. 333 adults partook. They were matched together with, I think, 172 adults who had never taken rapamycin, but sort of matched, so people who were quite similar to each other. And let's take a look at some of the results here. So firstly, we get down to it. Yeah, firstly, here's the doses which people were taking. So red is women, blue is men. And at the bottom here, you can see the number of milligrams per week people were taking. Because one thing with rapamycin, it's used for organ transplantation, but people who are organ transplants have to take high doses every day, and that can cause certain side effects, especially in combination with the other drugs they need to take. However, people taking it for longevity purposes, we think, and again, this is not proven, so we're still waiting on other studies to sort of prove this, that taking rapamycin intermittently, such as like once per week, should give you the benefits without giving you the side effects, or certainly lessening the side effects. And you can see here that the most common dose, certainly amongst men, was 6 milligrams per week. I personally, when I did my 3-month trial, you can see this in a previous video, I took 5 milligrams per week myself. Now, here is the table we want to take a look at. So again, this is just a survey results, and people were asked various questions, and they were asked whether or not they agree or disagree with them, such as everything from, I feel younger to I have more erections on waking for men, surprisingly, or my vision got better. And what this table looked at was sort of the ratio between people who either agreed with the statement, disagreed with the statement, or the statement did not apply to them, or they didn't think one way or the other. Again, just brief thing for myself, I didn't actually notice anything when I took rapamycin, either good or bad. Having said that, I was 46 when I was taking it. Also, I was in good health, so I wasn't expecting to sort of see or feel much different. I did various biomarkers, which, if you look at the previous video, you'll see the results of that. Sort of a mixed bag, but certainly according to the Morgan Levine PhenoAge calculator, my scores there actually dramatically improved. Anyway, so this is more about people's own perceptions about how their response to rapamycin. Now, maybe unsurprisingly, everyone agreed that rapamycin has, let's make this a bit bigger so you can see, rapamycin has anti-aging properties. I mean, these are self-selected individuals, so of course they're going to be hopefully thinking that. So by a large margin, in fact, nobody disagreed that rapamycin is anti-aging. However, actually it's a bit smaller here. The highest responses in terms of the ratio of people who agreed to disagree were in terms of my health has improved since taking rapamycin, which had a 7.8 ratio, agreed to disagree. I'm happier, my brain works better, I feel younger, I have more energy. All of these had a ratio over 6. You can see the sort of the figures here. And the interesting one here, however, is, again, this is self-reported, but still, hopefully the people who are being honest, was that family or friends have commented that I look good. And slightly lower ratio. I mean, 38 or 39% of people thought that they agreed with the statement, only 7% disagreed. Half, I guess, didn't report report that one way or the other, but still it's interesting, other people commenting that they people looked good, and that's higher amongst rapamycin takers. In terms of on the other end of the spectrum, there wasn't anything in terms of vision getting better or tinnitus improving or hearing improving, but still, again, perhaps the most important thing was, actually, we'll get to the most important thing in a moment. But again, this is self-perception, but still interesting that people at least felt that they got a benefit from it. And certainly, even though I didn't feel any specific benefit, I will like to try rapamycin again. However, what I was going to say importantly was not so much what people feel about rapamycin, but whether or not there were any adverse effects, so any side effects, basically. So again, this is more sort of a safety, not study, but looking at the safety aspects of it. And here, so this is like the previous, I should say, the previous table was just looking at the people who actually took rapamycin. Here it's comparing the people who took rapamycin against the people who were not taking it in terms of any side effects. And this is quite interesting. So the shaded rows here are the rows which achieve statistical significance, and the blue shaded ones are where the non-users had a greater rate, and the one sort of pinkish, reddish shaded one is where the rapamycin users had a greater incidence of these side effects. And you can see that the non-users had more abdominal cramps, depression, abdominal pain, muscle tightness, anxiety, eye pain, whereas the rapamycin takers had more mouth ulceration or canker sores in the mouth. Now, that was unsurprising because that is actually the most common side effect reported for rapamycin. So the fact that more people got mouth ulcers is not a surprise. I was expecting to get one myself. I didn't. But also, I should say these mouth ulcers are more transient, I believe. They're not sort of, limiting, so to speak. But even though the rate was fairly low amongst the rapamycin users. Now, the one thing about these side effects, which happen more often in the placebo group, or the non-user group, was the fact that some of these side effects are side effects that are such as abdominal cramps, muscle tightness and stuff, are side effects which are more noted in transplant patients who are using rapamycin. So the authors found it quite interesting that this did not show it up in this survey. But once again, transplant patients are not only taking rapamycin, they're taking various other drugs, and also are quite sick if they are, they're not that well, if they're needed to have a transplant in the first place. So the important thing here is the safety profile seemed to be quite good. I mean, I guess again there are all sorts of other potential side effects, but they're all minor, and there was no real difference between the rapamycin taker users and the non-rapamycin users. But regardless, again, just simply an indication. This is not a proper placebo-controlled blinded study. So again, self-reporting and all that, but still an indication of the potential benefits or at least lack of side effects for rapamycin. Very much look forward to the human studies, such as the Pearl trial, which actually I was involved with at the initial opening phase. Now, the second study here is a placebo-controlled randomized clinical trial, however, in dogs, and actually done by some of the same scientists, including Matt Chamberlain, who is behind the sort of the dog aging study, looking at how dogs age. And a component of that study is giving a proportion of those dogs rapamycin to see how it affects their aging. And so here we go, Matt Chamberlain, probably. And anyway, so this is a very small study. Only 17 dogs were involved, and these were older dogs, 6 to 10 years old, weighing 18 to 36 kilograms, so slightly larger dogs, because larger dogs age more quickly or die sooner than smaller dogs for whatever reason. And this was 6 months. They were given a low dose, 0.025 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, 3 times per week for 6 months. And they were evaluated for the cardiac benefits, because rapamycin supposedly has cardiac benefits. Now, they did not find any difference or any improvement in the cardiac scores. However, and I'll get back to that in a minute. However, one thing that did come out of this, again, one of the reasons for that was that only 17 dogs were involved, so it's difficult. There'd have to be a huge change for it to be statistically significant. Looking at the details, I'm not a cardiologist, it seemed that there seemed to be a trend of improvement towards rapamycin, but quite minor. Now, the authors conclude was that they might have given too low a dose, because they'd had an even smaller previous study, unblinded study, where they'd given double the dose, and there had been a benefit, but it was for shorter duration. So they thought they would cut the dose because it was going to be 6 months as opposed to only a few weeks. And they surmised that they need to give a higher dose to see a benefit. So in the actual rapamycin portion of the dog aging project, which has a lot more dogs, they will once again double the dose and hopefully see benefit. But again, it's going to be several years before we get the results from that larger trial. However, the interesting thing here was that apart from checking their cardiovascular system, the dog owners were also given a survey where they would fill out saying how they felt their dogs were behaving and their general health of their dogs. And what they found was that 26.8% of the rapamycin taking dogs, the owners perceived positive changes in behavior or health, compared to only 8.1% in the placebo group. And that just made statistical significance, because statistical significance is there's less than 1 in 20 chance that it is chance which is causing the effect. So the p-value needs to be below 0.05 to be statistically significant. Anyway, again, small study. Most importantly, I guess, once again, there were no major adverse effects. So it was safe in the dogs. Dogs weren't harmed by taking rapamycin, because, of course, when it comes to medicine, the Hippocratic oath is first do no harm. Okay. Moving to our next study. So this is about collagen peptides, which people take because they think it improves the skin. And I've seen quite a number of studies which seem to indicate that collagen peptides improve sort of skin elasticity and various parameters of skin health. And that's actually one of the reasons I take collagen peptides myself, also for the glycine, which is a large proportion of collagen. And well, this is the first study that I saw which looked at how that affects AGEs, which stands for advanced glycation end products. Now, what are those? Well, basically, it's when certain molecules basically get oxidized, react with oxygen. So think about when you make a toast. So a slice of bread goes brown. That is creating AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And although they make like foods, like barbecue food, for example, or maybe more tasty, it turns out they are very bad for us and are linked with the incidence of diabetes, amongst various other things. So basically, if you can kind of reduce your consumption of AGEs or the production of them, that should be beneficial for your health. And I certainly cook to try to, I don't fry things because frying creates them. So I basically, well, I'm going to the details here, but yeah, I try to minimize my AGEs. So anyway, I was quite intrigued when I saw this study showing that collagen peptides could actually reduce them. And so let's take a look. And it's actually a PDF, won't go into that, but let's take a look at the graphical. Actually, before we do that, just quickly mention that, so there's this 31 individuals. So again, a small study, people between the age of 47, 87 years old, and they were given either 5 grams a day of fish-derived collagen peptides or placebo for 12 weeks. Just a little mention on this. I mean, I take bovine collagen. I have not seen any indication that getting it from fish or other sources is any better. I guess it depends whether or not you want to have animal products or you're a pescatarian or whatnot. Excuse me. But let's take a look at this graphical abstract, so that has all the information that we need. Now, again, people were taking 5 grams a day for 12 weeks, and it's a powder. You put it into a drink or something like that. And this chart here, make it bigger. Yes, I can make it bigger. I try to make it bigger. Let's try that again. So this is how the AGEs in the skin changed, and obviously 0 is, I guess, the baseline. And amongst the placebo group, it's slightly increased or thereabouts over the baseline, or basically sort of, I guess, kind of stayed the same. Whereas in the people taking the collagen peptides, as you can see there, that this line is below that of the baseline, so that their AGE is at least measured in the skin, but presumably that should be the same throughout the body, including the blood vessels. It decreased in the people taking the collagen. And the significance of this in regards to diabetes is here. So HOMA-R is a measure of insulin resistance. The lower the score, the better. And in this chart, which shows the relation of AGEs. So here, okay, explain this chart. So at the bottom here, to the left is if AGEs go down, to the right, AGEs are higher. And on the vertical axis, obviously above is the HOMA-R score goes up, below HOMA-R goes down. The red dots are people who took the collagen peptides, blue dots are the placebo. And when drawing a line through, looking at the trend line here, basically, if your AGE levels are lower, it looks like that your HOMA-R score is lower as well. Now, this is a correlation. It doesn't necessarily mean causation, but again, the trend line is seems to indicate that if you can lower your AGEs, that is better, at least in regards to diabetes risk. And as I say, it's not only diabetes, atherosclerosis, various other diseases are also linked to having higher levels of AGE. So it was quite, as I say, quite interesting to see that taking collagen peptides might reduce that incidence. But once again, only 31 people, only 17 people were in the collagen peptide group. Very small trial, needs to be replicated. And also, should also just mention, this was done in Japanese people. So there can be potentially racial differences in the results. But still, I found this quite positive. Now, let's moving on to not a new study, but a review. But I thought this was a very succinct overview of the best or the optimum levels of exercise one should do for longevity. So of course, exercise is good. Pretty much everyone knows that, especially if you're watching this video, you should know this already. But the question is how much? I mean, more is better generally, but you know, can there be a case of like too much is not good for you? Quite often with things, you get a sort of a J-curve effect where more is better up to a point, and then things start getting worse. Like even taking water, for example. You know, drinking more water is better, but if you drink too much water, it could kill you. So hopefully, I mean, the same might be happened with exercise. But anyway, let's take a look at the results here. And if you can, I would suggest bookmarking this because it's quite short. Actually, it was from a couple of months ago. I just saw it last month, but yeah, puts it together quite simply. Now, firstly, it's looking at the difference between vigorous and moderate physical activity. And before we look at those charts, what is the difference between moderate and moderate and vigorous activity? So moderate physical activity typically includes activities like walking, hiking, gardening, housework, dancing, shopping, golf, pickleball, doubles tennis, volleyball, and leisurely bike riding. In contrast, vigorous physical activity typically involves strenuous bicycling, running, or swimming, or high-intensity interval training. Singles tennis, basketball, or other activities that cause heart-pounding, sweat-producing breathlessness. So I mean, now that we know what the difference is, let's look at some charts looking at mortality risk. So just to remind myself, so yeah, the first chart is looking at all-cause mortality. The second one is at cardiovascular mortality. And you can see here, the green line is moderate physical activity. The red line is vigorous physical activity. And whereas for moderate physical activity, it really seems to be more is always better. And so explaining the graph, at the bottom you got minutes per week of each of the activities. Hazard ratio, so one is there's no difference, I guess, than a sedentary person. Anything below is 0.8 means a 20% reduction, 0.7 a 30% reduction in risk. And you can see here, more minutes per week of moderate physical activity, the slope continues to go down quite considerably up to a lowering of 35% compared to sedentary people. Whereas with vigorous physical activity, sort of after the 150-minute mark, so 2.5 hours per week, it kind of plateaus for overall mortality. A slight decrease, but not as much as moderate physical activity. And in fact, if you're looking at cardiovascular mortality, once again, moderate physical activity just keeps on going down up to minus 40%, a 40% reduction in mortality, whereas for vigorous physical activity, there is more of a J-curve effect, and the trough of it is between 150 200 well, looks like it's like 200 minutes per week, which is just over 3 hours of 3 hours and a half of physical of vigorous physical activity. But again, it's only showing a reduction of 15%. So although vigorous physical activity is good, it might be worth not overdoing it, which is good to know in case you're worried that you're not doing enough and all this. So again, but once again, the more moderate physical activity you can do, the better. Moving on to, so that's more cardiovascular, so aerobic exercises and stuff. However, resistance training, building up muscles, is equally important, and it's best to conduct both aerobic and resistance training, so to gain the most bang for your buck. But let's take a look. Remind myself where strength training. Yeah, here we go. So people doing resistance training, so that means lifting weights or anything that involves, as I say, building up muscles. It's important to do that every week. But again, how much is enough? How much is potentially too much? And here they found out that there was a much more distinct J-curve effect taking place. On the left here, so these two graphs, once again, one being like people doing nothing, anything above shows greater mortality, anything below shows lower mortality, and the horizontal axis shows how many minutes per week of the activity people should do. And the graph on the left is for overall mortality. The graph on the right, once again, is cardiovascular mortality. And here, it's quite interesting. So for overall mortality, the lowest level was around 40 minutes per week. Cardiovascular around 60 minutes per week. But people who did more than 140 or 130 minutes per week actually started getting worse results in terms of mortality than those who didn't sort of do any exercise to begin with. I got a little bit of pushback actually when I posted this study on Twitter, but I don't know, these were systemic sort of studies. I mean, you can see here both these drafts came from 6 studies here. For this one, 5 studies on the one on the right. So it is quite possible to do perhaps too much exercise. I mean, personally, I do strength training either twice or 3 times a week. I basically do it every third day. I take 2 days to recover, for my body to recover before doing any more. And I guess I'd roughly do around 60 minutes or so. So this is quite per week. I don't want to spend all my time doing strength training. So yes, I was quite pleased with this, just because I seem to be doing this amount myself anyway. But something to bear in mind, that you don't need to spend all your life in the gym if you are a gym rat. But of course, I mean, if you enjoy it, fair enough. But for your mortality or longevity's sake, maybe you might need to cut back a bit, depending. Anyway, let's take a look at a couple more of the graphs here, which I skimmed over to start with. This is just saying that this is tracking people over 20 years and how much exercise they do, or how much energy they expend. This is saying METs, which are metabolic equivalents. I won't go to the details here, but basically you can see here, the more energy people use, the more active that they are, the lower their mortality rate. So this is showing the cumulative survival. So 0.2 means 80% of the people have died over the course of 80 years. So unsurprisingly, the least fit people died a lot faster than the extremely fit people. So the more fit you are, the fitter, the better. After all, according to Charles Darwin, it's all about the survival of the fittest. Though, of course, he referred to a different type of fitness than just fitness. Okay, so those are the sort of 2 main types of exercise: aerobic or resistance training, anaerobic, I guess. But in terms of what sports, here's just another score showing, if you want to, the thing you can test out yourself, how easy you find it to sort of sit down or stand up. And people who needed less props to sort of sit down or stand up, again, had a higher mortality rate. That's not what I wanted to show. Here we go. So in terms of actually what exercises to do, this one obviously got some jogging all the way down to tennis, and it appears to be that racket sports, see at the bottom, your added years of life versus sedentary lifestyle. It appears that racket sports are the best kind of sport to partake in. And a reason for that possibly could be, according to some other studies I've seen, is that racket sports help improve hand-eye coordination. So this is more taxing on the brain, being able to hit the tennis ball or the shuttlecock. And what else to bring from this study? Also, just mentioning that activities that involve that you can do socially. Socializing is so important for longevity. Loneliness is a real killer, as bad as smoking. So if you can do activities together with other people, that is beneficial as well. Finally, if you can do stuff outside in nature, that is even better as well. Okay, moving on. No, that's the last one. No, we've got a couple more to go. Moving on to the next one, which also involving exercise, but combining exercise with creatine, which has long been a staple of bodybuilders, because not only does it help increase strength, but also it makes your muscles bigger, which obviously is important for bodybuilders. And I take creatine myself for strength training, mainly for the strength benefits. But I've also seen some indications, or a couple studies, that creatine might be useful for cognition because it gets utilized by the brain as well. But all the studies in creatine, all the prior studies in creatine, have involved younger people or athletes or bodybuilders. And again, people who are sort of trying to optimize their strength. This study was interesting because it involved older people. And let's open it up. Forget what age ranges they were. So here, 45 non-athletes, average age of 68 years old, were divided into three groups, I guess 3 groups of 15 each, either plus control group, they didn't do any exercise, a placebo group who did resistance training and then took a placebo, and finally the creatine group who did resistance training as well as taking creatine, and they took it at the level of 0.1 grams per kilo of body weight, and the trial was over 10 weeks, 3 sessions of resistance training per week. And they found that basically they tested a few things, not only the strength, but also the antioxidant, the body's sort of antioxidant response. And what they found was that both resistance training with or without creatine improved the antioxidant response of the body, increased levels of GPX and TAC or what have you, some certain forms of antioxidants, and also both for the resistance, both groups of resistance trainers, at least compared to the control group, they improved their strength. However, what was really interesting was the amount of improvement. Here we go. The amount of improvement seen in the creatine takers compared to the non-creatine takers. So you can see here, pre-test, top here, post-test, all the various exercises that they did. Here it's RT, resistance training plus creatine supplementation, or resistance training plus placebo or control. And if you were to look up and down this table, you would see that all the resistance training groups increased their strength. However, the creatine group increased their strength a fair bit more. And without going through all these details, I can tell you that overall, whereas the resistance training group on its own increased their strength by 36%, those also taking creatine increased their strength by 57% in total. So it's sort of a 20 percentage point improvement over the resistance training on its own. And the significance here is that, I mean, loss of muscle mass, loss of strength is one of the sort of, I guess, main hallmarks of aging, and can really affect quality of life. You know, the ability to stand up from a chair, the ability to sort of take care of yourself. If people become too weak and they can't do that anymore, they end up, you know, in an old age home. They ended up in bed rest. You know, hand grip strength, or again, various measures of strength, are a sort of predictor of mortality. So if people can maintain their strength for longer, that is obviously good for their longevity. And it's really important to encourage older people to do some resistance training to maintain and even build up their muscle mass. So if creatine can add to that, make that easier or more substantial, then that is obviously a good thing. And finally, here there was and they also checked people's quality of life, and you can see here, compared to control, whose quality of life basically stayed the same. For both resistance groups, quality of life dramatically improved. Again, going back to what I just said, slight benefit to the creatine group. I'm not sure if that was actually statistically significant. Looks like it was statistically significant. So yes, there was a greater level of improvement among the creatine group for quality of life scores. Okay. So just a couple takeaways about the creatine collagen. That's something I'm now going to try to get my parents to start taking as well. Because I think, yeah, the evidence is, as far as I'm concerned, the evidence is strong enough for it to be worthwhile, and especially since they are both safe to take, most importantly. Okay, now moving on to our final study, and this is in moving away from humans into mice. So take that. Yeah, it's mice, not humans. This is for Glynac, which is a combination of glycine and NAC, which is an antioxidant. I forget now what the abbreviation means. Something cysteine. The C stands for cysteine, another amino acid. And this first caught my eye a couple of years ago when a human study came out seeming to show some benefit. And there have been a small number of human studies showing quite considerable benefit. Here's I've linked the last one, or a recent one, which came out last August, and taking glycine resulted in improvements in everything from glutathione deficiency, I think that's oxidization, mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammation, endothelial dysfunction, which is the blood vessels, IR, insulin resistance, multiple aging hallmarks, impaired physical function, increased waist circumference, or means that it decreased it, systolic blood pressure, and systolic blood pressure. So among a huge number of parameters, taking Glynac improved things in humans. I should mention quite high doses. In that study, they were using 100 milligrams of both glycine and NAC per day per kilogram of body weight. So someone like me, I weigh roughly around 84 kilos. I would have to take 8.4 grams, both glycine and NAC, to replicate this study. And there was another study showing potential benefits, potential cognitive benefits, but that study was not placebo controlled. And also they couldn't, euthanize the people and slice their brains up to see what was going on inside their brains. However, they can do that with mice. So in this study, they gave mice, not a huge amount of mice, only 8 mice in each group, a similar dose used in in the human studies, and they gave mice the Glynac for 8 weeks, after which they tested their cognition, and then they killed the poor critters and sliced their brains open to find out what was going on at the molecular level. And here is what they found. Let's again look at the results, study results. Where do we go? Go. Okay, so here's the first one. So here's the overall, the important one in a sense, or cognition. So this is mice were put into a maze and had to figure out how to get out of the maze, and the faster they get out, the less mistakes they make, the better. And in this chart, let's make this chart bigger. Don't need to go to the other slide. So this bar chart. So blue is for the sort of the young control mice, youthful mice. The red is the old control mice, and the green is for the mice taking Glynac. So you can see that before they started the trial, the older mice took a lot longer to complete the maze than the younger mice. However, after 8 weeks of Glynac, the older mice, started approaching the time taken of younger mice. And not only that, the number of errors, so I guess the number of dead ends they went down or something like that, likewise declined among the Glynac taking mice than the old controls, again getting closer to what younger mice did as well. So that's the overall sort of cognition sort of score. Carrying on, so One thing Glynac supposedly does is that it's the building blocks for glutathione, which is one of the primary antioxidants that our body produces. So by taking Glynac, the glutathione levels should increase. And again, this is and again, it declines with age. So again, these charts, blue youthful, red old controls, green Glynac taking mice. You can see that in all these three different parameters, different forms of glutathione, the mice taking Glynac return to similar levels to that of the younger mice. Not entirely, but getting huge improvement over that of the old control mice. And they also looked then at the enzymes which produce glutathione, and once again, the colors are the same for all of these charts. The Glynac taking mice had much higher levels of these enzymes than the old control mice, and a couple of them pretty much were statistically the same as the youthful young mice. Now, brain oxidative stress. Again, older mice had more oxidative stress. Glynac reduced it quite considerably. Mitochondrial function in the brain. I won't go into the details here, but once again, you can see the green bars are a lot closer to the blue bars compared to the red bars. So, what was this again? So, yeah, so mitochondrial regulators, mitochondrial respiration. So mitochondria are the power sources in our cells, which give us energy, basically. And once again, this is respiration, so I guess how much our mitochondria are working. And I don't know all the details what all these things mean, but again, the green bars return to sort of similar to youthful levels, and a couple actually higher than youthful levels, but anyway, better than the red old control mice. And autophagy, which is the recycling mechanism in our cells, autophagy is generally speaking good. Once again, Glynac restored it to more youthful levels. Glucose uptake in the brain, again, well, our brains, comprise, I think, 2% of our mass, but consume 25% of the glucose. Our brains are very energy demanding. And once again, glucose uptake was higher in the mice taking Glynac. Finally, brain inflammation. Only got a few more to look at. Brain inflammation, once again, higher in the old control mice. Got a lot better in the Glynac taking mice. Genomic damage in the brain, again, higher in the old mice, lower in the Glynac taking mice. And final one, brain-derived neurotrophic factors cause our neurons to grow and, I guess, make connections. BDNF is good for us. Once again, taking Glynac returned levels similar to that of the youthful mice. So, one last one. I don't know what this actually means. Microglial activation in the brain. No, again, reduced it compared to older mice, more towards younger levels. I forget what the significance there is. Anyway, very small study, only 8 mice per group. Again, only in mice, but it sort of corroborates what was seen in a human study showing improved cognition. Yeah. Again, I am now thinking about maybe getting my parents on this, and something that I'm thinking about myself, except for the huge amounts. I need to look to see how much these things cost on this in the supplement. in the supplement marketplace, but pretty impressive. And as I say, GlyNac is something that I am keeping my eye on. The one, I wouldn't say fly in the ointment, but the one thing to bear in mind is most of the studies I've seen about GlyNac have come from the sort of same group, I'm going to try Mr. Sakar or Dr. Sakar maybe. So a lot, not all of them, and most of them have come from this one group. So I would really love for other groups to try to replicate these studies and expand upon them. But I'd say both glycine and NAC are supplements which are available. So the effects seem to be quite substantial. So potentially something we all could take. Okay, that was the final study I wanted to go through with you. I'm not this time going to go through the supplemental section. There are too many things here to take a look at. If you have any questions about any of the studies here, please do get in touch with me, maybe in the comment section below this video. But there are always plenty more interesting studies to take a look at. Always bear in mind that if the study has a star in front of it, that means it is a human study. So potentially more relevant to us, obviously, since we're also humans, unless you're a bot watching this. But anyway, finally, I want to briefly give some CLA news, because May, or the 18th of May, marked the completion of, or almost the completion of, our setup. Although we've been incorporated since the 18th of November 2021, there were various legal obligations which we needed to have done within 18 months of our incorporation, and which I was struggling to achieve, and involved things like posting our organizing resolution, bylaws, setting up a board of directors, and I was getting incredibly stressed about this. I hope to do it myself because I didn't want to pay any legal fees, being short of cash and all that. But I ended up just chasing my tail and finding new levels of anxiety. So I bit the bullet, hired a law firm, and I wish now I'd done that 6, 9, 12 months ago. And they got it all sorted out. So I want to give a big thanks to Andrew Klebine, who was the lawyer in question from the BIG Charity Law Group. They specialized in nonprofit legal matters. And everything got done. Of course, I ended up signing the documents on the very last day they needed to be signed, but it's done. Huge relief. And we have now a board of directors. They all signed on board. So a big warm welcome to Bulut Gayfulan, Dmitry Kaminsky, Laura Mincini, and Todd White. More about them probably later, or you'll find more details about them on our website once we get the directors page up and all set up. And the big relief, of course, now we can focus on our mission. But first things, with the most important first step this legal stuff enables us, is to open a bank account, because I've been a bit hungstrung, whatever. Haven't been, we have not been able to open a bank account up until now because, I won't go to the details, but yeah, basically until we got all this stuff done, we couldn't open a bank account. And hopefully later this week, we will open one. I'm just waiting back from the bank now to confirm the appointment time when we can go there and get it all up and running. We've got our donation service set up and waiting, but I couldn't open it until we linked it to a bank account. So, and got the donation button ready for our website and all that. So I will no doubt, hopefully, fingers crossed, anything else goes wrong, be able to tell you the details about how you can donate, help us out financially, so that we can grow and become more effective. Because although we're volunteer run and we'll stay volunteer run as much as possible, we have costs and expenses, and we want to do things. We want to make an impact, and unfortunately, we do need some money to make a an even greater impact. Anyway, that's the end of this month's review. Once again, thank you for watching. Please like the video. I'm sure that makes a difference according to the Google Overlord algorithms. Any comments are much appreciated if you write them below. Again, contact us via the links below this video. And otherwise, I wish you all the best. Stay healthy, and I will see you in a month's time. All right, take care.